Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Ravina, NHS doctor specialised in women's health and Femtech founder of Zonas. Today I'd like to talk to you about our hormones and how our hormones change during the menstrual cycle. Many women, almost all women, will experience a period throughout their life. But actually, how many of us really know the changes that are happening in our body week on week and the hormonal changes that are happening in our body? So what I'd like to do is just talk you through what happens to our body week on week and the different changes that are happening in our brain, in our body and in our pelvic organs down below. So on average, a menstrual cycle lasts between 28 days and 35 days. So what a menstrual cycle is day one of your period in 1 month to day one of your period in the next month. And this period of time can vary between 28 days to 35. However, we're all different, and in some people it may be less than 28 days, but in some people it may be longer than 35 days. And if that happens to you, if your period lies outside that range, it doesn't mean it's abnormal. It can be normal, especially if it's something that happens month on month. So if you always have 24-day cycles, fine. That's something that's normal for you and nothing that we worry about. If your periods are excessively long, so longer than 35 days, perhaps they're 45 days, perhaps you're getting a period every 2 months, then it might be a good idea for you to speak to your doctor so we can organise some hormonal tests, specifically to look for polycystic ovaries. But actually you can get longer cycles for many other reasons. So if you're going through stresses in your life, if you're going through new changes, if you've changed your diet, if you're exercising a lot, there's lots of reasons as to why your periods can change. So let's start with talking about what happens in week 1 of your menstrual cycle. So week 1 is menstruation. That is when you are bleeding. And this can last up to, as I said, up to 10 days in some people. But let's just to work on averages, let's say week 1 is day 1 to day 7. And that is your menstruation. So what happens during this time? Well, during menstruation, your womb, so your uterus in medical terms, is shedding. You are shedding all the things that your womb had produced to expect a fertilized egg to be implanted into the womb. So your body was expecting for a pregnancy, but on this occasion, the egg hasn't been fertilized. So you don't need a juicy uterus. You don't need all the nutrients. You don't need all the blood and mucus, nutrients, blood vessels to build up in the womb, because we don't need that environment to allow a baby to grow. So that all just sheds. And during that time, we have the lowest amount of hormone. So we have low amounts of estrogen and we have low amounts of progesterone. The next phase is the follicular phase. And the follicular phase lasts for about 14 days, 13 to 14 days. It starts on day 1 and it ends around day 13, day 14. During this period, your ovaries are developing an egg. But in that process, it has to develop follicles, and it develops many follicles, and only one will be released as the egg into the womb. So during this period of the follicular phase, you'll have an increase of your estrogen. So during your menstruation, all the levels are really low, and then as the follicular phase goes on, your estrogen will slowly increase incrementally until it gets to day 13, day 14. And that's when we get to our next phase, which is ovulation. And as most of you know, ovulation is the release of an egg from an ovary. And that can be from either side, either ovary. So at ovulation, you have sky high estrogen. That's the highest time of your estrogen throughout your cycle. So you may notice some change in your mucus. You may notice some vaginal discharge that's thinner, more watery, and that acts as a lubricant because that's the time when you're in your fertile window, and that's a good time to get pregnant. And so you'll notice some changes. You may notice your skin might be a little bit better. You might even notice some mood changes at the time. And that's because you have high level of estrogen. And after your ovulation phase, you have the luteal phase. And the luteal phase is a phase that lasts between day 15, so after ovulation, up until the end of your cycle, so around day 28, so between 15 to 28. And the luteal phase will finish on the first day of your next period. During the luteal phase, you will have an increase in your progesterone. And the reason that we have an increase in our progesterone is because our body has now released an egg and now realizes we're in a state to get pregnant. So the body is preparing for a sperm to enter the uterus, fertilize the egg, and implant it into the wall of the uterus in order to produce a baby. So in order for this to happen, our body wants to be in the best state. It wants to be the most healthy it can be. So it produces a really comfortable, warm, healthy environment in the womb, which has lots of nutrients, a blood supply, mucus, prostaglandins, lots of oxygen to allow the developing fertilized egg to become an embryo and then into a baby. So this is what the progesterone helps with. However, if the egg is never fertilized, the progesterone will eventually fall. And that happens at the end of the luteal phase. And that's when we get our next period. The progesterone falls and then our period comes to start the next menstrual cycle. During the luteal phase, some people will experience some symptoms, and these are commonly known as premenstrual symptoms under the umbrella term of premenstrual syndrome. And I'll do a video separately on this because this is a massive problem in women, and so many people have symptoms that affect their life emotionally, physically, in their everyday life, and not always spoken about. So the reason why people have PMS symptoms, and those can be things like feeling really emotional, feeling moody. I know that I personally feel really emotional the day before my period. I'm an emotional wreck. I'm usually crying and I don't even know why I'm crying. It's just tears are coming and you don't really know why. And even if you know the science behind it, your hormones can still have that effect on your body. So if you do have those symptoms, I'm with you, and I also am an emotional wreck. So mood changes is something that's really common in PMS. Acne, bloating, you may notice that your skin's really dry, your hair's falling out, you feel really tired, you may notice some breast tenderness. So those are all symptoms related to having high progesterone in your blood. Okay, so we've spoken through each of the stages in a lot of detail. So let's summarize what the menstrual cycle is and what's happening in your body. So week 1 is your menstruation. You are bleeding during this period and all your hormones are pretty low. Then between week 1 and week 2 is your follicular phase, and your estrogen will slowly rise as the follicle is developing, and you'll have many follicles that will develop. However, only one egg will be released from the ovary. If you release more than one egg, you have the chance to have twins or triplets. And then we then get to day 14, which is ovulation. And during ovulation, you're going to have very high levels of estrogen. It's going to be the highest time in your cycle where the estrogen will be at its highest. And the reason it's high is because it will release an egg. As soon as the egg is released, the estrogen will drop. It will drop really low. And that will be at the beginning of the luteal phase. The luteal phase lasts between day 15 to day 28 on average. However, it can be longer in many people. And during this time, your estrogen remains pretty low. Your progesterone will slowly increase over time, and it will heighten in order for the womb to prepare for the fertilized egg to be implanted into the uterine wall, which is the womb. When we get to day 1 of the next period, the progesterone will drop, as will the estrogen. And this is because we are now shedding the lining of the womb as we no longer need it, and that will be the start of your period again. So that's just a quick summary of the hormones and the changes that happen in your body during menstruation. I hope that you found that useful, and join us next time for more information. If you have any specific questions that you'd like me to answer, please put them in the comments down below, or you can private DM me at dr.ravina on Instagram, and you can follow us at Zonas Fertility, and that's also on Instagram. Until next time, see you soon. Take care. Bye.